The galaxy was a place of countless civilizations, each bound by their own cultures, histories, and interests. Among the stars, a delicate balance existed, an unspoken agreement of peace and cooperation, where alliances and rivalries simmered beneath the surface, but outright warfare had been largely absent for millennia. The idea of conflict between the galactic powers was unimaginable. They had learned from the past, each faction understanding that a war of annihilation was simply not an option if they wished to survive. Then came the humans. Humanity, a species just a few centuries into interstellar travel, had always been underestimated by the rest of the universe. They were considered a primitive race, one that lacked the sophistication and grandeur of older, more advanced civilizations. The Zorikai, a species with centuries of experience in galactic diplomacy, had laughed at Earth's first diplomatic envoys, brushing them off as nothing more than a passing curiosity. The Andrians, renowned for their military might and advanced technology, had simply ignored humanity's requests for partnership, assuming their primitive ships posed no threat. To most, the idea of humanity being a force to be reckoned with was laughable. But that underestimation would soon prove to be a catastrophic mistake. The first sign of trouble came when the High Council of the Galactic Dominion received an encrypted transmission from an unknown source. The message, short and cryptic, was addressed directly to the leaders of every major galactic power, with a single line that chilled the spine of even the most hardened diplomats. Humanity strikes first. At first, the message was dismissed as an anomaly, perhaps the result of a miscommunication or a false alarm from one of the many intelligence agencies scattered across the galaxy. After all, how could a species so young, with barely any presence in the galaxy beyond their solar system, be a threat? The Zorikai, with their advanced psychic abilities, attempted to probe for answers in the ether. But all they found was an overwhelming silence, a strange anomaly that unsettled them more than they cared to admit. The Andrians, known for their military might, initially laughed off the message, believing it to be a joke or a poorly executed hoax. Yet, in the darkest corners of the galaxy, whispers began to circulate of something strange occurring on Earth. There had been reports of unknown ships being seen in the deep void, ships that didn't belong to any known species. Their movements were erratic and unpredictable, almost as though they were deliberately avoiding detection. The Galactic Dominion dispatched scouts, but the reports returned empty, offering no answers. By the time the Dominion acted, it was already too late. On Earth, the secretive organization known as the Terran Alliance had long been working in the shadows. Comprised of the best minds from every nation on the planet, this group had been preparing for a moment like this for years. They had studied the galactic powers, their technologies, their politics, and their weaknesses. The goal was not to dominate the galaxy. That had never been the intention, but to ensure that humanity would not be wiped out by a more advanced species, as had happened to so many others in the past. The Alliance had built something that no one had seen coming, the Echelon Project. The Echelon was not just a weapon, nor was it a ship. It was an entire system, an integrated network of advanced artificial intelligences, quantum computing, and newly developed propulsion technology. The core of the Echelon was a series of ships, each one capable of moving faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen, their stealth capabilities so advanced that even the most sophisticated alien detection systems could not track them. But what made the Echelon truly terrifying wasn't just its technology, it was the way it was deployed. In a single coordinated strike, humanity launched the Echelon ships across the galaxy. The ships entered deep space undetected, slipping through the cracks of galactic borders, passing through space that no one had dared to venture into for millennia. They appeared out of nowhere, positioned at strategic points around the most powerful galactic empires. And then they struck. With no warning, the first of the Echelon ships unleashed a cascade of cybernetic chaos across the Dominion's communications network. The second hit the Zorikai homeworld, sending their psychic shields into disarray, rendering their once unbreakable mental defenses useless. The third slammed into the Andrian fleet, taking out the core of their military infrastructure in one devastating blow. Humanity had not fired a single shot, nor had they raised a single ship in defense. Instead, they had infiltrated, subverted, and disabled. The galaxy, once confident in its own superiority, was caught completely off guard by a force so efficient, so precise, that it left nothing in its wake but chaos. The message was clear. Humanity had struck first, and they would not be ignored. In the wake of the shocking attacks, the galaxy was plunged into a state of confusion. The once unshakable confidence of the Dominion, Zorikai, Andrians, and other galactic empires was shattered in mere moments. Panic spread like wildfire, as communication channels were flooded with conflicting reports, theories, and accusations. The first order of business for the Galactic Council was a meeting. Representatives of the various powers convened in a massive, gravity-defying hall in the heart of the Dominion capital. The room buzzed with hushed whispers and heated debates. The once quiet and unassuming humans had managed to strike at the very heart of their most powerful civilizations. How had they done it? And, more importantly, why? "We are dealing with something we cannot fully comprehend," said Chancellor Khan, the leader of the Dominion. His voice carried a weight of disbelief, his usually calm demeanor now strained. Our most advanced technologies, our psychic shields, our fleets, nothing was enough to stop them. We had no warning, no sign of aggression. Their message was clear, interjected Zorikai, High Commander Char, her expression tight with both fear and anger. They don't want diplomacy. They've made their intentions known. They are not looking for peace. The message wasn't just a declaration of war, it was an execution. Char's words hung heavily in the air. The Dominion, whose psionic powers could detect even the smallest shift in the fabric of space, had been blind to the human strike. The Zorikai, whose psychic abilities were unmatched, had been completely blindsided, their homeworld vulnerable for the first time in centuries. The Andrians, with their colossal fleets, had always been able to defend their borders, but their military infrastructure had been systematically wiped out. "We need to retaliate," roared General Kor, the Andrian warlord. "The humans have crossed a line. We cannot let this stand. We have the power to crush them." "No," interrupted Chancellor Khan, raising his hand for silence. "We do not retaliate recklessly. We need to understand what we are dealing with first. This is a different kind of enemy." A silence settled over the room, and the leaders exchanged uneasy glances. No one had been prepared for this. The humans had acted without provocation, without warning, and without mercy. The Galactic Council had assumed that such a race, so new to spacefaring, would be easily managed, their primitive technology easily neutralized. Yet the events that had unfolded defied every expectation. "The question is not how they attacked," said Ambassador Vaz, a representative of the Krogan Guild, his voice slow and deliberate. "The question is, why did they choose to strike now? They've been watching us for decades, perhaps longer. But this sudden action, this complete subversion of our communications, tells us something far more troubling." "That they were ready?" General Kor offered grimly. Vaz nodded. "Yes, ready for something that we haven't seen coming." As the debate continued, the factions began to debate a response. Some were pushing for an immediate, all-out counterattack. Others, more cautious, suggested sending diplomats to Earth, offering humanity a chance to explain themselves. But all were in agreement on one point: the balance of power had shifted. If humanity had the capability to cripple the galactic powers with such precision, they were no longer an inconsequential species. Back on Earth, in the hidden depths of the Terran Alliance's command center, the mood was far different. There was no panic, no fear. There was only purpose. Admiral Callan, one of the key leaders behind the Echelon project, stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. His sharp eyes traced the lines that represented the human fleet strikes, the locations of the cyber attacks, the disabled military fortresses, the broken communications grids. To him, it wasn't a display of destruction. It was a map of victory. "We've done it," he said, his voice calm but tinged with something darker. "They don't know how to fight back. They're too fractured, too arrogant. They think they're invincible. But they'll soon learn." His second-in-command, Commander Rhea, was watching the holographic displays with a quiet intensity. She had been part of the covert operations that launched the first echelon strikes, and she knew how precarious their position was. The galaxy's response was inevitable. Retaliation would come. It was only a matter of time before the empires realized that humanity was not a threat they could easily ignore. "But what now?" she asked, her tone cautious. "We've crippled them, but they won't just lay down. We've shown them a glimpse of what we can do, but they will adapt." "We've initiated the first phase of the plan," Admiral Callan replied, tapping a series of symbols on the hologram. "But this isn't just about crippling them. It's about establishing a new order. Our next move will secure humanity's place in the galaxy. No more will we be subjugated or forgotten." Rhea nodded, but unease lingered in her expression. The humans had struck first, yes. But now came the difficult part, staying one step ahead of the galaxy's mightiest forces. Meanwhile, far in the outskirts of known space, a lone scout ship, its cloaking technology powered down for the first time in weeks, moved closer to Earth. A figure cloaked in shadows sat in the pilot seat, a communicator device blinking faintly as it transmitted data back to its mysterious source. A single message appeared on the screen. "The humans have made their move. Prepare for the next phase." The scout ship disappeared into the vastness of space, leaving behind only the silent expanse of the void. No one knew yet, but the galaxy's future was about to be reshaped by something even darker and more insidious than what humanity had unleashed. While the galaxy's most powerful empires were still reeling from the shocking cyberstrikes, humanity was quietly laying the groundwork for something far more profound. Their strike had crippled the Dominion, Zorakai, and Andrian forces, but this was only the first phase of a much larger, more calculated plan. The Terran Alliance was prepared for what would come next. Admiral Callan stood at the head of a large war room, the stark lighting casting shadows across his stern face. Around him, holographic displays floated, showing the intricate movements of human forces, the strategic locations of the galactic power's weakened systems, and the encrypted communications that had taken down entire fleets. The Alliance's victory was unprecedented, but it was only a taste of what was to come. Commander Rhea entered the room, her face sharp with determination, but also marked by a lingering unease. She had been monitoring the alien response closely, and though the initial chaos had subsided, one thing was clear. The galactic powers were not going to accept their humiliation without retaliation. "We're not out of the woods yet," she said, her voice firm. "The Zorakai are regrouping, their fleets are slowly recovering, and the Andrians are mobilizing what's left of their forces. The Dominion is trying to rebuild its communications network. The galaxy isn't just going to let us sit here and gloat." Callan turned to her, a subtle smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "I never expected them to. But they've underestimated us, Commander. They don't realize that we've already anticipated their next move." He gestured to the hologram in front of him. On the map, there were a series of marked locations scattered across the galaxy. Some were abandoned, others fortified, but all were critical points of control. Callan's finger hovered over a system near the edge of Zorakai space. "This is our next move. We've intercepted intelligence about a secret project the Zorakai were working on before the attack. If we strike here, we can cripple their ability to communicate across the galaxy. If we take out their relay stations, we'll blind them completely." Rhea's eyes narrowed as she studied the data. "You're suggesting we blind them the way they've been blinding us?" Callan met her gaze directly. "Exactly. The first strike was a statement. But this will be a signal. We're not just some fringe species to be dismissed. We're here to take control of our destiny, whether they like it or not." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the leadership of the Galactic Dominion was far from complacent. Chancellor Khan and his advisors were grappling with the aftermath of the devastating attack, struggling to piece together what had gone wrong. No one had anticipated the level of precision and strategy that humanity had displayed. The Dominion's intelligence division had launched a full investigation, though progress had been slow. For the first time in centuries, they felt vulnerable. "These humans," said a high-ranking Dominion officer, General Varis, "they're not just a rogue species. They're organized. They've been planning this for years. And we have no idea how deep their network is. Khan stared at the holographic displays, images of damaged fleet yards and shattered infrastructure. We have underestimated them. No more. We will not be caught off guard again. Send all available ships to intercept any human vessel we can find. We need to show them that their victory was a fluke. Varys hesitated. A direct confrontation could lead to further losses, Chancellor. Perhaps we should consider the possibility of diplomacy. Diplomacy. Khan spat, his tone sharp with disdain. They have declared war without a single shot fired. We will not negotiate with them, not until we show them that we still control this galaxy. And yet, even as Khan spoke with confidence, doubt crept into his mind. He had long prided himself on the Dominion's superiority, on their mastery of psionic warfare and their perfect defenses. But nothing in his long reign had prepared him for an enemy who used silence, precision, and cyber warfare as their primary weapons. The question nagged at him. What else had the humans hidden from view? In the shadows of this galactic chess game, an unexpected ally had begun to emerge. Far from the glare of the galactic capitals, a lone figure sat in the dim confines of an ancient, forgotten temple. This figure, cloaked in shadows, was no mere observer of the events unfolding. They were an active participant, a hidden hand steering the course of history. The figure's fingers hovered over a series of encrypted terminals, their technology far older and more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Data streamed across the screens, intercepted communications, and patterns of activity from both the Terran Alliance and the Galactic Empires. This was no ordinary force. This was a race long lost to the annals of history, a people who had once been gods among the stars, only to be forgotten after their fall. They had been watching humanity for centuries, observing their rise and waiting for the right moment to intervene. In a low, mechanical voice, the figure spoke to the terminal, sending a single encrypted message to Earth. The time has come. Humanity has struck, but their future is uncertain. Do not let them fall as we did. The message was short, yet it carried immense weight. It wasn't a warning, it was an invitation. Prepare the vessel, the figure ordered. It is time to make contact. Back on Earth, Admiral Callan stood before his team, preparing for their next offensive strike against the Zorikai. But something was not quite right. An unexpected communication from deep space had reached them, a message encoded in a frequency not recognized by any known galactic technology. What is this? Rhea asked, confusion written on her face. Callan looked over the message, his expression unreadable. It was a cryptic warning, one he hadn't expected. The content of the message was simple. You are not alone in this fight. Watch the stars. He glanced up, meeting Rhea's eyes. We've always been alone in this fight. Now, it seems we have company. The silence that followed was thick with uncertainty. For the first time, Callan felt a stirring of doubt. Who had sent this message? And why now, just as they were about to strike? Prepare for the mission, he ordered, though his voice had lost some of its earlier conviction. But stay alert. Something tells me that we haven't seen the full picture yet. As the Terran fleet prepared for its next strike, they unknowingly entered the next stage of a much larger game, one whose true players were still hidden from sight. The galaxy's fate was no longer just in the hands of humanity, but in the hands of a force even they had yet to understand. The day after the mysterious message arrived, Admiral Callan's team gathered in the war room, tension thick in the air. No one knew exactly what to make of the cryptic warning, but the message had been clear. You are not alone in this fight. Watch the stars. I don't like it, Commander Rhea said, her voice tight with uncertainty. We've been working in the dark for too long. Now, whoever sent this message could be anyone. But the timing, it's too precise. Callan studied the message again, his expression a mask of cold calculation. I agree. We've crossed a line, and someone is watching. But we can't afford to second-guess now. We have a window to strike before the galactic powers fully regroup. We move on the Zorikai relay system as planned. The team fell silent. There was no turning back. Humanity had already ignited the firestorm, and now it had to burn. In the depths of the Zorikai homeworld, High Commander Char was consumed by a fury that had rarely overtaken her in her long career. The Zorikai, a species known for their powerful psychic abilities and unshakable resolve, had been rendered helpless by a race they had dismissed as primitive. The Dominion's vast psychic network, once the envy of the galaxy, was in disarray, and her people were scrambling to recover. "Where are they?" Char asked, her voice low but filled with barely contained rage. Her trusted lieutenant Drow stepped forward, holding a series of reports that detailed the scale of the damage caused by humanity's strikes. "We don't know," Drow said, glancing at the screens. "The humans have somehow infiltrated our most secure systems, disabling key relays before we could react. Their ships move like shadows. We cannot track them." Char's eyes burned with determination. "I want those ships found, no matter what it takes. We cannot allow this to continue. The galaxy will fall into chaos if we let them gain any more ground." Drow hesitated for a moment before speaking. "High Commander, there's something else. We intercepted a message, a transmission from somewhere beyond known space. It's encrypted, but it was clear in its intent. The humans are not alone." Char narrowed her eyes, absorbing the implications. "Not alone. This could be a warning," Drow said softly. "Someone else could be aiding them, or at least watching them. It's possible this is a coordinated move." Char clenched her fists. "Then we have no choice. We'll hunt them down, even if it means pulling every asset we have left. I won't let them have the upper hand." Far from the Dominion's borders, on the edge of the galaxy, a strange and ancient vessel drifted through the empty void. Its design was unlike any known technology, its hull a blend of organic and mechanical elements, pulsating softly as if alive. On board, the cloaked figure from earlier sat in a dim chamber, studying the results of the encrypted communication they had sent to Earth. The figure was not alone. Standing in the shadows of the chamber was a second, taller presence, its eyes glowing with a dim, unnatural light. "Have they received it?" the taller figure asked, its voice resonating with an unsettling, otherworldly cadence. "They have," the cloaked figure responded, their voice smooth and deliberate. "The humans are acting according to their own plan, but they are still unaware of the greater force at play." "And the Terran Alliance? Are they prepared for what's coming?" "They believe they are in control," the cloaked figure replied, a faint smile curling beneath their hood. "But even the strongest of humans cannot see the long game." The taller figure regarded the cloaked one with an unreadable expression. "The Dominion is the least of their concerns. The galaxy is already fractured. What they don't know is that their strike was only the beginning of something much larger. They've opened a door, but they don't understand what lies on the other side." The cloaked figure turned, their eyes glowing faintly beneath their hood. "Let them proceed. They will soon find that they are not in control of their fate. The time for the humans has passed. Now it is the time of the forgotten races." Back in the Terran Alliance Command Center, the fleet was mobilizing for the strike on the Zorikai relay system. Callan's mind was sharp as ever, though the weight of the unknown message still hung over him. "We're not backing down," he said to Rhea and the others. "This strike will cripple their communications once and for all. No more subterfuge." "Understood, Admiral," Rhea replied, though there was a trace of hesitation in her voice. "But we need to be ready for anything. We don't know who or what is behind that message." Callan nodded. "Whatever it is, we'll deal with it when the time comes. Right now, we have a chance to push them back, to make a statement." The war room fell silent as the command ship, Ares, set course for the Zorikai relay station. In the distance, beyond the borders of Zorikai space, something unseen was stirring. The deep space scanners of the Ares blinked in and out of focus, detecting faint disturbances, echoes of something far more significant. The fleet approached the Zorikai relay system. The station was a formidable fortress, protected by a network of defense platforms and energy shields. But the Terran fleet had the advantage: advanced stealth technology, precision timing, and superior tactics. It was a perfect setup for a strike that would leave the Zorokai reeling. As they neared the relay station, Rhea leaned over to Callan, her voice barely above a whisper. "Admiral, something's not right." "What do you mean?" Callan asked, his gaze fixed on the holographic display. "Scanners are picking up irregularities," she said, tapping a few commands into the console. "Energy signatures, they're too consistent. It's almost like they're waiting for us." Callan's pulse quickened. "Alert all ships. Full evasive maneuvers." But it was too late. The sudden flare of light from the Zorokai relay station was blinding, followed by a sharp, deafening hum that reverberated through the hull of the Ares. From every direction, an unknown fleet emerged from the shadows, ships that defied all known classification. They were too fast, too silent, and their weapon systems were unlike anything humanity had encountered before. The unexpected onslaught hit them from all sides. Energy blasts tore through the Terran fleet's shields like paper, and their stealth systems were easily countered. "We're under attack," Rhea shouted, her voice filled with shock. Callan slammed his fist on the console. "Fall back. Get us out of here, now." But the enemy ships closed in fast, trapping them in a battle for survival. In the chaos of the sudden ambush, a voice spoke softly over the intercom. It was calm, calculated, and filled with an ancient resonance. "You have made a grave mistake, Admiral Callan." The message was clear, and it carried with it the weight of something older than any known civilization. And in that moment, Callan realized with a sinking feeling that humanity had just unwittingly walked into the heart of something far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The battle was nothing short of catastrophic. The Terran fleet, once so confident in their superiority, was now reeling under a relentless assault. The strange enemy ships, sleek and deadly, seemed to appear from nowhere, moving with such speed and precision that even the most advanced Terran ships couldn't keep up. Energy blasts streaked across the void, tearing through shields and hulls, and the Ares was no exception. The flagship's outer hull had been breached, and alarms blared across the command deck. "Damage report." Admiral Callan barked, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Shields down to 20%. Engines failing." Rhea replied urgently, her fingers flying across the console. "We're sitting ducks here, Admiral. These ships are cutting through us like they've done this before." Callan's mind raced. It had all gone wrong so quickly. The Zorokai relay station had been a setup, a trap. But who could orchestrate such a perfect ambush? And why? The message that had arrived before the battle echoed in his mind. "You are not alone in this fight." Before he could respond, a sudden jolt threw him off balance, and the lights flickered in the war room. The Ares had been hit again, harder this time. A deep, rumbling sound reverberated through the ship. "We're being boarded," Rhea said, her voice grim. "Seal off the bridge," Callan commanded. "Get us to the secondary defense points, now." It was too late. The enemy ships, impossibly fast and silent, had already infiltrated the Ares. A group of black-clad figures, humanoid, but far taller than any Terran, materialized in the hallways, moving with eerie precision. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their presence alone was enough to send a wave of dread through the crew. Rhea moved swiftly to her station, setting the ship on a course that would bring them toward the nearest safe zone. "Admiral, we need to talk to them. We have to know who they are." "We don't have the luxury of answers right now, Commander," Callan replied sharply, his eyes scanning the enemy's movements. "Just stay alive." But as they scrambled to regroup, something unexpected happened. A voice, cold, ancient, and undeniably familiar, crackled over the intercom. "Admiral Callan." The voice was both alien and familiar, its resonance almost tangible. Every officer on the bridge froze. The voice sent chills down their spines, but it wasn't a voice of an enemy. It was something else. Callan's eyes widened as recognition settled in. "Who is this?" he demanded, his voice tense. "What do you want?" "You don't recognize me?" the voice replied, almost mockingly. "How typical. You were always too eager to rise. But you have yet to learn the true nature of power." The voice was human. "Who are you?" Callan repeated, this time with force. "What do you know about the Terran Alliance?" There was a long pause. The silence felt suffocating, and then the voice came again, colder, darker. "I know enough. You've made your move, Admiral. But you've walked into something much larger than you can comprehend. The fight you've started, it's not your fight anymore." Before Callan could respond, the intercom clicked off, and the bridge doors burst open. The black-clad invaders poured in, their towering forms menacing and imposing. But instead of attacking, they simply stood motionless, watching the crew with unsettling eyes. Rhea's hand moved instinctively to her sidearm, but she hesitated. There was something about them, something about their presence, that made her question everything. "What do you want?" she demanded, stepping forward. One of the invaders stepped forward, their voice deep and resonant, echoing through the halls like a sound from another time. "We are the Keepers," the figure said, his voice thick with authority. "And you have broken the seal. The balance you thought you controlled was never yours to break." "Keepers." Callan echoed, his mind spinning. "Who are you? What do you mean?" The Keeper's glowing eyes pierced through the dim lights of the bridge. "We are the guardians of the lost truth. The humans are far older than you think. You've opened the door, but you're not ready for what you'll find." Before anyone could react, the invader raised a hand, and the lights flickered out. Total darkness consumed the room. The hum of energy filled the silence, like the pulse of something ancient, something vast. Meanwhile, in a secluded corner of the galaxy, on the shattered remains of an ancient space station, a group of scholars from various galactic races had come together to study the events unfolding. They had gathered in secret, knowing that what was happening was only the beginning of something far greater than they could have imagined. "We've observed them," one of the scholars said, his voice tense. "The humans, they were not the aggressors we thought them to be. They are awakening to something far older. The Keepers are involved, and we're too late to stop it." "But what does this mean?" another scholar asked, her face pale with fear. "The Terran Alliance is already playing with fire. What happens when they realize the true nature of their history?" "The Keepers have waited long enough," the first scholar said gravely. "The Terrans were never meant to rise like this. They were meant to remain in the dark." Back aboard the Ares, Callan's crew found themselves in an unsettling standstill. The Keepers had seemingly disabled all systems, communication, navigation, even life support. Nothing worked. And yet, there was a strange, unnerving stillness in the air. The towering invader stepped forward again. "You're not ready for the truth. You thought you were the first to strike, but the galaxy was never meant to be yours. You've disrupted the balance, and now the price must be paid." Rhea's voice broke the tense silence. "What price?" "Time is an illusion," the Keeper responded cryptically. "You've tapped into something that no one should have. Humanity was meant to forget. But now, the true war begins. The one you were never meant to be part of." A sudden shift in the air, a ripple in reality itself, caused the crew to stagger. The room seemed to twist, and the walls of the Ares flickered, revealing strange, alien symbols that hadn't been there before. They were old symbols, older than anything in galactic records. It was as if the very fabric of the universe itself had changed. The Keeper's voice was the last thing Callan heard before everything went black. Back on Earth, the Terran Alliance's leaders were left in confusion and fear. Communications had gone dark. The fleet had vanished without a trace. And somewhere in the deepest part of the galaxy, the unknown players who had been watching all along finally moved. They had been waiting, and now, humanity's fate was no longer in their hands. The Ares had been silent for hours, its crew trapped in a dark void of uncertainty. No lights, no communication, no way of knowing where they were or what had happened. The only sounds were the occasional hums from the ship's damaged systems and the faint breaths of the crew, who huddled together in the cold, oppressive darkness. Admiral Callan stood at the center of the bridge, his face illuminated by the flickering, faint lights of the consoles. The invaders, the Keepers, had taken control of the ship with terrifying ease, leaving nothing in their wake but silence and the whispers of something greater. His mind raced. Where are we? Callan muttered to himself. What did they do to us? Rhea was at a nearby console, her hands hovering over the controls, but not daring to touch them. She, too, could sense it, the weight of something massive looming over them. The Keepers hadn't just disabled the ship, they had changed something fundamental. The Ares no longer felt like a Terran vessel, it felt like something else. As though it was now part of something far older, something beyond the scope of human understanding. Admiral, Rhea's voice broke through his thoughts. The symbols, they're not just on the walls. They're in the ship's systems. Every part of the Ares is now encoded with them. It's as if we've become part of their network. Callan looked at her sharply, the implication of her words sinking in slowly. Are you saying the ship itself has been, what? Possessed? Linked? I don't know, sir. But whatever it is, it's not natural. Before Callan could respond, the ship's internal intercom crackled to life. The voice that came through was calm, too calm, suffused with a terrible certainty that made every spine on the bridge shiver. Admiral Callan, Commander Rhea, you stand on the precipice of a great revelation. You thought the galaxy was at war, but what you've unleashed is far beyond any war you've ever known. The voice was not from the invaders. This voice was different. It wasn't just speaking to them, it was speaking through them, as though it had always been there, lurking within the ship. What is this? Callan demanded, his voice cutting through the eerie calm. Who are you? The voice paused as though considering the question, then replied in a tone that made Callan's stomach drop. I am the Accord. We have waited for you to awaken. The humans, your kind, were always meant to awaken at this time. The balance of the galaxy was never meant to remain in your hands. The Keepers only guided you this far, to open the door. And now, the true nature of your existence will be revealed. A shudder passed through the ship, and the walls seemed to ripple, as though they were alive. The symbols etched into the metal shifted, pulsing with a deep, otherworldly glow. Rhea swallowed, her eyes wide with fear. What are you talking about? What door? The door to the old network, the voice responded. The door that connects all things. You have broken it. You have broken the ancient seal. Seal. Callan's voice was sharp. What seal? What does this all mean? The Accord's reply was slow, deliberate, as though it were explaining a fundamental truth that humanity had never known. Before the galaxy had names and borders, before even the Keepers, there was the network, the shared web of existence that linked all life in this galaxy. Some species sought to protect it, others sought to control it. The humans were meant to remain apart from it, not to rise up and shatter its balance. But you have done so, and now the consequences are upon you. The crew looked at one another, all of them unable to comprehend the full gravity of the situation. The Ares had once been a symbol of Terran strength, but now it felt like a toy in the hands of something far greater than humanity. Rhea took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. What happens now? What are we supposed to do? The Accord's response was chilling, and it seemed to come from every corner of the ship, echoing in their minds. There is nothing you can do now. You have opened the gateway. The Keepers will take you to the center. And when you arrive, you will know the truth. The galaxy is not yours to rule. It was never meant to be. Callan's thoughts spun out of control. The center, he echoed, but the voice gave no further explanation. Meanwhile, in the distant reaches of the galaxy, a hidden council of the galaxy's oldest and most secretive races had convened. The unexpected actions of humanity had disturbed their carefully constructed plans. For millennia, they had watched the galaxy from the shadows, steering its course without intervention. Now, the sudden rise of humanity, combined with their reckless activation of the ancient network, had disrupted everything. In the heart of a forgotten star system, an immense, crystalline structure shimmered with energy. Within its walls, the leaders of the oldest races convened, faces obscured in shadow, their eyes glowing with an ancient light. Humanity has breached the door, one of them intoned, its voice filled with dismay. The Accord has awoken. It's too soon, another replied. They were not meant to know the truth yet. They should have remained ignorant. They were meant to remain apart, a third figure added, its voice a whisper in the dark. Now they will be drawn into the war, not just between the empires, but between us. The balance has shifted. What does the Accord intend to do with them? The first figure asked, a note of worry creeping into its tone. Not even the keepers know, the second replied. The Accord has its own plans. They will do what they must to maintain the balance, and that includes all of humanity. Back on the Ares, Callan felt a cold chill as the ship continued to drift aimlessly through space, the symbols on its walls glowing brighter by the moment. He and his crew were prisoners in their own ship, caught in the grip of forces they didn't understand. Rhea stood beside him, her face set with determination despite the dread that had settled in her chest. Admiral, what if this isn't about just survival anymore? What if they're trying to make us part of something larger, something beyond us? Callan turned toward her, his mind racing with the possibilities. That's what I'm afraid of. Another tremor shook the ship. The walls pulsed again, and the ship's artificial gravity flickered before returning to normal. But this time, the crew could feel it, the sensation of being dragged toward something immense, something unknown. Then, the ship spoke again. We are coming. Prepare yourselves. The center awaits. The Ares lurched forward, its course set on an uncharted destination far from everything humanity had ever known. Whatever lay ahead, the truth that had been hidden from the galaxy for eons was now about to unfold. And humanity, having cracked the seal, would no longer be mere players in a galactic conflict. They would be central to the universe's oldest war. On Earth, the Terran Alliance was already in a state of crisis. Communications with the Ares had been severed, and their fleet had vanished. They had no answers, only the growing knowledge that their fleet, and possibly their entire species, was now caught in something much larger than they had ever imagined. The true war had begun. The Ares hurtled through a starless void, surrounded by a darkness deeper than space itself. Time lost meaning. No stars, no planets, no bearings, just the pulsing light of alien glyphs etched into the hull, and the ever-present hum of something vast moving beneath reality. Admiral Callan stood on the bridge, surrounded by silence. Rhea, exhausted but resolute, worked at her station, trying to decipher what little she could from the ship's systems. But the truth was undeniable. They were passengers now. The Ares was no longer under Terran control. It was following a path laid down long before Earth had fire. A deep vibration rippled through the ship. The voice, the Accord, returned not through the speakers, but through their thoughts. It was like being submerged in memory, in history not your own. You wished to rise. You struck first, but the galaxy you thought you struck was just a layer. The bridge windows shimmered and then melted into transparency, revealing what lay ahead. A colossal structure loomed in the distance, larger than anything any known species had ever built. Suspended at the heart of a black nebula, it resembled an ancient construct wrapped around a dying star, an impossible lattice of matter and light, both decaying and being rebuilt simultaneously. It was the center. Rhea stared, her voice hollow. That thing, it's not a station. It's alive. No, Callan said quietly. It's a vault. And we open it. Inside the construct, time fractured. As the Ares entered the threshold of the center, the ship's crew experienced what could only be described as memory bleed, sudden floods of knowledge, images, and sensations that didn't belong to them. Battles in alien skies. Civilizations dying under the weight of their own ambition. Gods that weren't gods, only architects of control. They saw the first strike, not humanity's, but the one made millennia ago by a race that called itself the progenitors. Beings who feared what free species might become. They created the Keepers to maintain the illusion of galactic balance. They created the Accord to enforce compliance. And then they vanished or were consumed by the very system they built. The Accord spoke again. You, humanity, are not a mistake. You are the consequence. The Keepers feared you. The empires feared you. Because you were never supposed to exist unshackled. You were seated as a failsafe, but you evolved, broke your programming, refused control. Callan gritted his teeth, the weight of history pressing into him. So what now? You're going to wipe us out? Because we refuse to stay in our cage. Silence. Then, no, we cannot. You are the glitch that became the code. You are the beginning and the end. Now you must choose. The bridge illuminated, showing two paths projected into the stars before them. Path 1, submission. Return to Earth. The Accord would seal the gateways. Humanity would be allowed to live, monitored, restrained, contained forever. Safe but small. Path 2, ascension. Accept what humanity had become, not conquerors, not prey, but wildcards. Step into the broken galactic system and reforge it. But this path would not offer safety. It meant total war against the Accord, the Keepers, and all that had once held the galaxy in stasis. Admiral? Rhea whispered. What do we do? Callan stared at the two options, then looked at his crew. Tired, scared, but still alive, still fighting. Then he looked at the stars. No more cages, he said. He stepped forward and made the choice. He chose war. The center exploded with light. A pulse erupted outward, flooding the galaxy with something older than energy, awakening. Across the Dominion, Zorikai, and Andrian space, machines built by forgotten hands blinked to life. Vaults opened. Hidden stations, once cloaked by ancient programming, revealed themselves. And at the heart of Earth's moon, an ancient Terran relay, buried under kilometers of rock, activated for the first time in millions of years. Humanity has chosen. The voice spread across space, not as a threat, but as a reckoning. In the Dominion, Chancellor Khan stood on his war balcony and stared at the sky, seeing new constellations that had not existed the day before. What have they done? He whispered. In the Zorikai High Temple, Commander Char watched as her psionics were overwhelmed by waves of alien data. We were never the top of the chain, she muttered. We were never even free. Across the galaxy, the sleeping giants, the lesser species, the forgotten ones, began to rise. Inspired, armed, ready, because humanity had done the unthinkable. They had struck first, yes, but more than that, they had refused to kneel. Back aboard the Ares, Rhea looked at the stars lighting up in new patterns and smiled, despite the tears on her face. They're coming, she said. Callan nodded. So are we. Behind him, the crew stood taller than before, not just warriors, but witnesses to the truth. The galaxy was no longer what it had been. The empires were broken. The cycle was shattered. The game had changed, and the wild cards had taken the board.